Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this special event celebrating the first 90 years of the life of His Royal Highness Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, who had his birthday last Thursday. I am Peter Barnes from the British German Association, and I am joined by a very distinguished panel who I will introduce as they come to make their individual contributions. Just a quick note on housekeeping. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find a number of buttons. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please click on the Q&A button to type in your question or your comment, and we will try to feed that in during the course of the conversation. If you would like to speak, then put the raise hand button, click on the raised hand button, and we will try to come to at the very end of our session. But let me start by introducing Chris James from Scouts UK. Scouts UK has been, I think, the organisation of the 160 odd organisations that the Duke has been patron of, that the Duke has been patron of for the longest. So over to you, Chris, to say a few words about the Duke's involvement with Scouts UK.
Thanks very much indeed, Peter, and it's a real pleasure to be with you all this evening. Hopefully you can see my screen share. Perhaps if I could have a thumbs up. Thank you very much, Matthew. So yes, on behalf of all our Scouts, and we've got 500,000 in the UK, I'd like to say a very special thank you and congratulations to His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent on his 90th birthday. And I'm proud to say that the Duke of Kent has been the president of Scouts for 50 years this year. And in that time, he has been a steadfast friend and champion and supporter of our Scouts and volunteers. Now, technically, his role is to oversee our council, which is the governing body of Scouts, but his role goes much, much further than that. He consistently encourages our Scouts to do their best and also to give service, and he himself is an outstanding example of that public service. I first met the Duke way back at the start of the century, if that doesn't sound too long to go back. He came and opened our offices at Gilwell Park in northeast London, and I was slightly nervous. I was holding the door open for him, and he flashed me that familiar winning smile we all know and love, and complimented me on my suit, but did also point out it was a Prince of Wales check I was wearing, so it wasn't quite appropriate for the occasion. But he made a point of meeting and shaking hands with every single member of staff and volunteer who was there with us that day, and I think that's a great example of the personal touch that he always shows and the great warmth that he also shows. Now, as a supporter of Scouts, all the way back from 1975, he has been second to none. So he's been out and about all over the country supporting camps and fundraising initiatives. As you can see, there's a giant check there for only looks for about £190, but I'm sure that was a lot of money back then. But he has supported meetings and events, large and small. And wherever he goes, as you can see from that joyful photograph there, he's lifted spirits. And as I say, wherever he goes, you know, he doesn't just talk to the volunteers or the leader in charge. He always makes a point of talking with the young people, because after all, that's what Scouts is all about. And you know, and not just the ones he's presented to as well. So, you know, he makes sure he catches the eye and has conversations with everybody there in a really inclusive way. And he's visited our headquarters at Baden-Powell House, which is where we were based until 2000, Gilwell Park, where we were based after that. But as I said, he's been been around everywhere. And this was actually quite a recent visit, well, certainly within the last 10 years, to Wolverhampton. And he went along to one of our local meeting places there. And I think what was going on here was someone was complimenting him on his scout tie and said, "Where did you get it?" And we've got some audio, and he said, "Oh, this old thing, I've had it for years." But as well as a tie, it should be worth mentioning that he's also received the highest award that you can receive as an adult in Scouts, which is our Silver Wolf. And they certainly don't grow on trees. They're only given to those who've given the very highest service. And of course, the Duke has certainly well deserved that. But he's also shown his own personal interest. So I'm sure you all know that he has a keen interest in emerging technologies and digital technology, and he's been a great champion of Scouts learning digital skills as well as sort of more traditional map reading skills. And I don't know whether he was sort of helping these young Scouts kind of get to grips with kind of early GPS at this point. But he certainly helped our Scouts get their science and computer badges. And he's given them, real personal encouragement with that. He returned to Gilwell Park, our headquarters, in 2019, which is when we celebrated 100 years of Scouts at Gilwell Park, the home of Scouting. And this building actually features in one of those earlier photographs. So, you can see he's sort of come full circle after so many years. But one of the kind of outstanding memories we have is when the Duke very kindly attended the centenary jamboree in Highlands Park in Essex in 2007. So this was the worldwide centenary of Scouts, and he joined us for a jamboree which had 40,000 people attending, plus 100,000 day visitors. And he came along with Prince William, of course now the Prince of Wales, and he was incredibly gracious. I think it was one of the early events that Prince William attended, and he allowed him to play a full part, despite being the senior royal there, I think, and very happily shared the limelight. But at that event, he gave a very rousing speech, and just mentioned just a few words from it now. But he said to all of the young people there from over 120 countries, he said, "I welcome you to this country, and I welcome you as a brother Scout. You've traveled from all corners of the globe, brought different cultures, different experiences and faiths. You're now spending time here at this unique jamboree. Our promise has been a beacon of light over the last 100 years, and now you're taking it forward to the wider world for the future. I wish you the greatest success, and when you travel home, I know you'll begin to make this world a better place." So, as you can imagine, that was incredibly well received. He's also been a regular presence at our annual Day of Recognition and Achievement at Windsor Castle, where our young people, he's seen here with our former Chief Scout, our last Chief Scout, Bear Grylls. And one of his key roles there has been celebrating those young people who've been awarded the Queen's and King's Scouts Award, so the highest award for our young people. And he's had wonderful conversations with them, finding out how they've given service, how they've developed their skills. And that's been an outstanding memory for all of those who've received their top award at the event. And even this year, in April, he was there alongside our new Chief Scout, great Dwayne Fields. And it was a wonderful moment for all of us to have His Royal Highness there with us. And Dwayne said at the event, or just afterwards, he said, "I had the great privilege of standing at his side as we took the salute during the march past at Windsor. He's a thoroughly kind and decent man, and not afraid of hard work or taking on significant challenges. And like every good Scout, always thinks of others before himself." So just coming towards the end now, the Duke very skillfully shares his presidency with Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, their joint presidents, and it's wonderful how they work so well together in partnership, supporting our volunteers and our young people. And I'd just like to end with a very special thank you to His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent as we celebrate this wonderful milestone, for everything he does and everything he's done and everything he continues to do for our movement. It really is service of the most outstanding kind, and we're incredibly grateful. So happy birthday, sir.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just for the benefit of those of the audience who are not Scouts, I noticed that people in the pictures were wearing scarves of different colours. Could you say a little bit about what that represents?
Yes, of course. Yes. So all Scout groups, we've got 7,000 Scout groups around the country, and each one of those has their own unique coloured neckerchief or scarf. There's quite controversy about what you call it. And those of us who work at a national level, we have a red, white, and blue one. So that's the thing. And then, of course, all around the world, they also have their own individual group scarves as well. So it's a real kind of potpourri of colours, and really shows the diversity, but also the unity of Scouts as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. The Scouts originally had a military inspiration from Robert Baden-Powell, and the Duke is also involved in a large number of militarily related organisations like the Honourable Artillery Company, the Royal Military School, the RUSI, Wellington College, the Tank Museum, Imperial War Museums, and so on. But he's also been very keen on supporting young people and people who are disadvantaged or disabled through organisations like the ADIS Trust, Endeavour Training, and Edge Foundation. But here to say more about his specific work with Blood Cancer UK, I'm delighted to welcome Matthew White. Matthew, over to you.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Peter. My name is Matthew White. I'm one of the directors at Blood Cancer UK, and it's a real privilege to reflect on the remarkable contribution of His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, and some way be part of these 90th birthday celebrations, which I think in itself is a great achievement. His Royal Highness has been a patron of Blood Cancer UK, Scouts, since 1972. So over 53 years. So I feel bad to so swiftly take the title of longest patronage from me. But Chris, don't worry, because your presentation, the way you presented your photos was a lot better than mine. And you've got an amazing presentation with such a rich history. And I think that it's impossible for me to do justice really to all that His Royal Highness has contributed in that time, and hopefully I can give you a bit of an insight into what that patronage has meant for us at Blood Cancer UK, and most importantly for people affected by blood cancer. To set the scene for his dedication and support, I really want to send you all back to 1960 first, because in 65 years ago there was a young girl called Susan Eastwood, and she was diagnosed with leukemia, which today is the most common childhood cancer. And back then, the outcomes for children with leukemia was very poor. And sadly, Susan soon died. Now, her parents, devastated, of course, they sat around a kitchen table, and they literally placed a £5 note on that table, and they said, "This has to change." And that was the beginnings of what is now Blood Cancer UK. And it's incredible then for me to think that only 12 years later, after her parents put that £5 note on the table, that those humble beginnings, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent became our patron. And the memories, the documentation, the books, the folklore in our charity show from that early days of his patronage. He's represented the compassion and the commitment that define this charity and our mission to beat blood cancer. So I wanted to share a few things from our history that you might find of interest. Now, that involves me sharing photographs, which I will not do in any way as slick as Chris did. So this is not of the Duke of Kent. This is of Morecambe and Wise. Now, I don't know how familiar your audience is, or the audience is with Morecambe and Wise, but you should look them up because they're very funny. And this photo is from a fundraising gala that His Royal Highness attended in 1983, and it was hosted by Morecambe and Wise. And in this moment, I think Eric Morecambe is about to host a game bingo, and he looks up to the royal box and he says, "Oh, we have to be careful tonight as we've got our boss with us." And then apparently the Royal Highness then indicated he wanted to play. But unfortunately, our records don't show if he won or not. I have some other photos to share with you that I think are really great. So bear with me as I share those. Let's see. So I just try and share a couple quickly because this one is from another event we had. I think this was like 1986, I think it was. And this is with Jackie Stewart. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a famous and successful British racing car driver. And this is at a clay pigeon shooting fundraising event in North Wales in 1986, where he was being presented and he was receiving these cars as a token of support and as a financial support for our charity. I think I love these photos. I really loved going through the history books and finding out the stories behind these. And then we have another one where His Royal Highness is accepting a cheque for £365,000 on our behalf. Just wonderful photos, I think. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, I want to share a photo with you of His Royal Highness. Oh, look, I don't know if I can. I will try and share it in the chat in a second. It's His Royal Highness opening a children's ward at a hospital. And I think that there's a really wonderful history at Blood Cancer UK of His Royal Highness at galas, celebrity events, concerts. And in my time at Blood Cancer UK, he's hosted concerts at St Paul's and events for us at St James's Palace and so on. But rather than give you a list of things, I kind of wanted to give you two very brief anecdotes that have really stood out to me personally because I think they tell a better story of what the patronage has meant. So firstly, our Royal Patron has been really engaged with research. So the biggest thing we do as a charity is invest in research so we can understand blood cancer better, find cures, find better, less toxic, less brutal ways to treat blood cancer. And over the years, His Royal Highness has visited many of our research labs, which is not something that gets the headlines. But last week, I saw one of our senior researchers, Professor Tarek Enver, his name is, whose lab the Duke of Kent visited in recent years. And I was saying to him, have you got any sort of like humorous anecdotes from that time or anything that the audience might find interesting? And he says, I don't, but what I can tell you is that when he visited us, much like Chris was saying about Scouts, it was incredible. He said the interest he showed, his curiosity, he was truly engaged. And he said what is so important about that is that we have young, very talented, very clever researchers that could earn a lot more money working on a career on something else in a more commercial setting. But the work they do for us, researching into cancer, it's not something where the big results come often. And so he said when His Royal Highness stops to speak to them with genuine interest, he said it's been an inspiration. He said it means something. And they go home and they call their parents, they tell their friends, they feel recognised for all the unbelievably important work that they do. And I think that's something that's really special. The second one that was quite moving to me is that His Royal Highness he invited a small number of our supporters to Buckingham Palace recently for an intimate event to recognise their support for Blood Cancer UK, the years of support fundraising they've done. And one of those supporters is someone that has fundraised year after year in memory of the son that they lost to blood cancer. And I saw a photo of them outside the palace and they were beaming. And they said that this sort of thing just doesn't happen to them. This recognition doesn't happen. To go to the palace, to meet His Royal Highness, again to be recognised in a way that something is really special. And I think what His Royal Highness won't know that he met that person, but that person during that moment had a photo of the son that they lost in their pocket because they wanted to share that experience, that moment, that memory. And so I don't know His Royal Highness personally in the way that other people on this panel do, but I know the difference that he has made to us. And at the beginning of this, I told you about Susan, the young girl that was the inspiration for this charity starting in 1960. When she lost her life to leukemia, only 1 in 10 children survived. Today, because of the research we funded over the years and the support we've had, 9 out of 10 children survive blood cancer diagnosis. And of course, I'm not saying that's all down to His Royal Highness, but he has been a really meaningful part of that story over the last 50-something years. So as we celebrate the birthday, I'd like to say happy birthday, sir, as well. And really, I just want to say thank you on behalf of Blood Cancer UK and for all the people affected by blood cancer. Thank you.
What a very moving story, Matthew. Thank you very much for that. And I think it really does show the way in which His Royal Highness, in his unassuming way, can really help to motivate people, help to make them feel that their voluntary contributions make a difference. You showed a picture in your presentation of His Royal Highness with Jackie Stewart, and His Royal Highness is actually involved, as many people know, with a number of sporting associations. In that case, the British Racing Drivers Club, but also a number of skiing clubs, motoring clubs, cricket clubs, and probably most famously his involvement with Wimbledon, where his wife was also a longtime patron and a famous consoler of runners-up in Wimbledon ladies finals. But one of the things that His Royal Highness is most notable for is his involvement with Germany. His father, as many people know, was killed on active service during the Second World War, so that His Royal Highness inherited the dukedom at, I think, the tender age of just 6 years old. But nonetheless, he and his family played a big role in reconciliation afterwards. So his first proper job was in the army, where he served for a number of years in Germany. And many people remember the Queen's really game-changing state visit to Germany in 1965, where she spent 12 days traveling around the country. But actually, it was His Royal Highness's mother, Princess Marina, who had made a trip to Germany in the previous year, 1964, to begin that process of reconciliation. And one of the areas in which His Royal Highness has been particularly keen to be a force for reconciliation has been in connection with Dresden. So I'm delighted to introduce the chairman of the Dresden Trust, Marcus Ferrer, to tell us more about His Royal Highness's work in that area. And just before I hand over the floor to Marcus, for the benefit of any latecomers in the audience, if you have any questions, do feel free to type them into the Q&A or to raise your hand, and we will try to bring you into the conversation at an appropriate point. Thank you very much. Over to you, Marcus.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Peter, and greetings, everybody. The Duke of Kent became the patron of the Royal Patron of the Dresden Trust in 1994. Now, around about that time, if you went to Dresden, you didn't have a friendly reception. It was pretty hostile because the people there remembered the bombing of Dresden by the British Air Force in 1945, which destroyed the whole historic center of one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, and in particular laid ruin to the most beautiful church which was there. So at that time, a number of British citizens thought, well, we need to get together and start putting this right. And they wanted to gather funds in order to help rebuild the Frauenkirche, this church, in the spirit of healing the wounds of war. And at that time, that's where the Duke became the royal patron, so back in 1994. And thereafter, he's been going to Dresden time and time again. Whenever the rebuilding reached a key point, he would go there again to sort of preside over the various stages of the restoration of the church. And he's been going back there for commemorations time and time again, every sort of 5 years and every 10 years, a large commemoration, and he's always there because he loves Dresden. He loves the people of Dresden, and they love him. And this has become really evident over this period of time. When the church was finally ready, he would keep on coming back for the commemorations. And I was there last February for the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Dresden, and the Duke was there again, 89 years old, not too steady on his feet, but immensely happy to be there, visibly happy. And he told his private secretary, "I feel at home here in Dresden." And they gave him an enormous warm welcome. And at the end of the day's commemorations, darkness fell and the snowflakes started swirling around. And at that time, they always traditionally form a human chain of about 10,000 people, citizens of Dresden and other dignitaries are there, to form a ring around the historic centre of Dresden to symbolically protect it. And the Duke was once again there in the snow, bareheaded, just a thin overcoat on, and doing his duty. And this is what really makes the impression. His solidarity with the people of Dresden and his total dedication to do the right thing, to heal the wounds of war in the spirit of never again. So that's the person who we've been celebrating the 90th birthday of just now. And we're so happy that over these years he's been our royal patron, because without him, frankly, we wouldn't have got nearly as far as we did.
Thank you very much, Marcus. And as you know, Marcus, I had the honor of joining you and His Royal Highness for the 80th anniversary this year, and was also struck by his amazing fortitude in standing bareheaded in the snow for 15 minutes, whereas I was in several layers of thick anoraks and beanies and still feeling the chills. It was also, I think, particularly appreciated on that visit that His Royal Highness spoke in German, because he is someone who is naturally very shy and doesn't like speaking in public much at all. So to actually take the effort to speak in a foreign language was very much appreciated. And I think it may also be worth mentioning in the Dresden context that his work there has been recognized very much in Germany as well as in the UK. So he was awarded the Saxonian Order of Merit. Dresden is in the Free State of Saxony in Dresden in 2015, and also the Dresden Prize in 2015. And in 2005 was given the Order of Merit Grand Cross First Class by the Federal President of Germany, which is the highest honor available in Germany to anyone who is not a head of state. So that is an indication of how deeply that connection went.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Peter. When he was awarded the Dresden Peace Prize in 2015, I was there in the audience. He was in the superb opera house, rebuilt opera house of Dresden. It takes more than 1,000 people there, and all the citizens of Dresden were gathered there. And he started off his speech by saying some words in German. And then he said very politely, "I hope you will not hold it against me if I now continue my speech in English." And that they thought was absolutely marvelous. But he did his bit in German. And at the end of his speech, he had a standing ovation lasting at least 5 minutes, everybody standing up there. And that's what they feel, this man, what he's put in there for recreating this friendship. Because now we've gone past reconciliation. That's been done more or less. But we now move on to a phase of real friendship and also cooperation. And now the Dresden Trust is involved with local partners in Dresden in a number of youth projects, exchanges of pupils, and creating a learning path throughout the historic part of Dresden, so that the Dresden school children and others can find out the glorious parts of Dresden's histories and the terrible parts too. So we're quite really involved there. And as Peter says, this extends beyond Dresden now, because what we are doing is pretty well known throughout the other parts of Germany. And I've noticed that both the ambassadors of Germany in Britain and of Britain in Germany, they all say that this is one of the significant activities now, which is helping to benefit Anglo-German relations. Because since Brexit, there are not so many of these regular contacts taking on, but we still do, and this is much appreciated by the diplomats too.
Thank you very much for that expansion, Marcus, and that perhaps provides a good segue into my own organisation, the British-German Association, which is trying to promote mutual understanding and friendship between the two countries at a national as well as a regional level. Marcus claimed that His Royal Highness had been a patron of the Dresden Trust since 1994. According to our records, he actually only started with the Dresden Trust in 1998 and became our patron in 1995. But in the spirit of friendly amicability this evening, I won't argue the point of precedence between us, but it just shows that both of us have been lucky enough to enjoy him as our Royal Patron for around 30 years. And he celebrated the launch of his Royal Patronage of the British-German Association with an event in St. James's Palace in 1995, which included the Royal Trumpeters and a large reception there. Since then, he has taken part in some kind of event involving our association almost every year. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the ones that I think were perhaps the most interesting. So in 2003, which was a time when we wanted to celebrate all links between the UK and other European countries, the British-German Association, as the most active of those bilateral friendship organisations, was lucky enough to involve His Royal Highness and their late Majesties, the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, in a reception at Buckingham Palace, which brought together representatives of not just the British-German Association, but the Franco-British Society and a number of other organisations. And it was a great demonstration, I think, of friendly links between the UK and the European Union. And in the past few years, since Brexit, we've been trying to rebuild some of those bilateral relations, which had in some ways been less important during the period of our EU membership, because there were so many other multilateral opportunities for the UK and European countries to have dealings with each other. And another event that a lot of people remember was on the in September 2005, so 20 years ago, but 60 years after peace had been signed, when His Royal Highness opened a plaque on the wall of Cannon Street Station in London. And you may ask why Cannon Street Station, and the reason was that this had been many centuries before the headquarters of German traders in London as part of the Hanseatic League. So their trading area was called the Stahlhof, or the Steel Yard, and this was in memory of that very strong connection between Britain and Germany. And now there are a number of German financial institutions clustered around Cannon Street Station, so those links continue. He also, in 2012, was the guest of honor at a gala dinner organized by the ambassador, the German ambassador, at his residence, where he awarded the Medal of Honor to Ambassador Baumgarten for his contribution to the UK. But I think the event that a lot of people who've been members of the BGA for some time most remember was his role in our celebrations in 2014 of the 300th anniversary of the Hanoverian succession in the UK, when the British German Association organised a state coach to travel all the way from Hanover to London, taking the same route as the coach of the Elector Georg Ludwig, who is better known in England as King George I, on his arrival in the UK. And there was a celebration afterwards in St. Martin's in the Fields, where His Royal Highness was present both at the service and at the reception in the crypt afterwards, with everyone that you could imagine who was involved in British-German relations in some way. I became chairman of the British-German Association 7 years ago, and the Duke has continued his strong involvement with us, particularly in being kind enough to award our BGA Medal of Honor each year, which is given to someone who has made a particular contribution to British-German relations, whether volunteers or diplomats or people involved in the music world. And 2 years ago, on the 30th anniversary of him becoming His Royal Patron, His Royal Highness was gracious enough to accept the BGA Medal of Honor himself. As I pointed out in my speech at the time, receiving the Medal of Honor does not add very much to someone who is already a Knight of the Garter and the Chancellor of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, but it was nonetheless a sign of his significant support for us that he was prepared to make this award. And this year, although having significant mobility issues, he was still willing to come to our ceremony, at which we awarded the medal to the 2 departing ambassadors, the British ambassador to Germany, Jill Gallard, and the last German ambassador to the UK, Miguel Berger, who had done so much to resuscitate British-German relations since Brexit, and whose work led to the Kensington Treaty that we signed just before the summer. Could I just check with Tamara whether we have Hugo Vickers on the line, or should we?
No, he is not.
No, fantastic. Well, this gives us another opportunity to invite questions from members of the audience. If anyone would like to come in at this stage, either to speak or to ask a question, either on any of the specific issues that people have, the participants have raised, or on any other subject to do with the Duke that you'd like to ask about. So perhaps I'll just pause a minute to see if anyone from the audience would like to come in, and if not, then come back to the panel to see if they would like to make any further reflections on the Duke's involvement in their own charities. Anyone from the audience? Elizabeth, Tamara, how do I put Elizabeth online? Oh, can Elizabeth? I think we can.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Hang on. Perhaps I need to. I don't know how to put my camera on. Hang on. Doesn't matter. Hopefully, can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that was fascinating. One area which hasn't been covered is the Duke's interest in music. I've actually seen him quite often at Wigmore Hall. I think he is a patron, if not the patron of Wigmore Hall. So he obviously must have a very keen interest in music, particularly in chamber music. So I wondered whether you or any of the panelists might be aware what triggered that, or whether potentially that's specifically also some German music, perhaps whether it might be church music, which he might have heard in Dresden or other places. So it just struck me that he is such a broadly educated and interesting man, an interested man, which can only be a leading example to us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I think that's an excellent question. The Duke is actually involved in about a dozen musical organisations as their royal patron. So the ones I'm aware of are the Royal Choral Society, the Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance, the London Philharmonic Orchestra, the King's Lynn Festival and Centre for Arts, the South Bank Centre, the International Musicians Seminar Prussia Cove, Wigmore Hall, as you mentioned, Opera North, Hanover Band, the European Union Baroque Orchestra, the Mendelssohn Society, and the Royal Opera House. So that indicates, as you say, a real passion for music. It is possible, but I'm just speculating here, that part of that passion was as a result of his marriage to the late Duchess, who was herself very keen on music. And after she gave up her title as a Royal Highness, actually taught incognito for a number of years in a state primary school in Hull under the name of Mrs. Kent. So there is that long-standing family connection. But do any of the panelists happen to know anything further about the Duke's connection with music? Marcus?
Well, yes, I just remember that at the 80th anniversary celebration, he attended one of the functions was a performance of Benjamin Britten's War Requiem in the main concert hall there. And it was a very moving occasion. I mean, first of all, it was a British composer who was really sort of anti-war himself. Everybody knew that. And the British conductor there too, but a German orchestra, a local Dresden orchestra, and a Dresden choir. And this tradition of classical music in Dresden is very much alive, and they're proud of their very high quality which they achieve, and in particular in the choral singing. I remember talking with one of them, and they said, well, we think that we in Eastern Germany, we are the ones who still have this old tradition of highest quality German choral singing. In West Germany, they've lost it a bit.
And not only choral singing. So Weber's famous opera Der Freischütz actually had its premiere in the Semper Oper in Dresden. Matthew or Chris, do you have any insights into music and the Duke?
Only to say that whenever we have our large events, particularly at Windsor, we always have our scout bands and marching bands with us, and we know that he heartily applauds their work during the day, and we have quite wide-ranging selections. You know, everything from Indiana Jones to Star Wars, but as well as the kind of classical repertoire. But he takes all that in very good humour, and leads the applause whenever we have those bands with us.
Fantastic. Would anyone else from the audience like to come in with a further question? One part of the Duke's life, which we again didn't perhaps touch on in as much depth as we might have done, is his military career. So his father, as I mentioned, was killed on active service, and he then, after being educated at Eton and in Switzerland, went to train as a soldier at Sandhurst, and was actually awarded the prize for French at Sandhurst, which was quite ironic in view of his subsequent interest in Germany. But he's had a lifelong connection with both the Royal Scots Greys and the Scots Guards. He served himself in the Royal Scots Greys, but like other members of the royal family, he found it very hard to serve as a professional soldier beyond a certain level because his presence attracted more attention than was helpful for military operations. So, for example, he served briefly in Northern Ireland, but then had to be withdrawn because it was felt that he would be a potential target for the IRA at the time. But in addition to the Royal Scots Greys and the Scots Guards, he's also been involved with the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, the Devonshire and Dorset Regiment, and the Lawn Scots, which is formerly known as the Peel, Dufferin and Halton Regiment. So it shows a very wide range of involvement in defence issues, which is in keeping with the rest of the royal family, for whom defence of the country has always been an important part of their duties ever since King George VI and the late Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and their children became the symbols of resistance during the Second World War. Marcus.
Hugo can't be with us this evening, but this is the book which he wrote about the biography of the Duke of Kent, and it's absolutely fascinating. For one thing, which I learned out of that is why he actually speaks pretty fluent French, is because he went to a boarding school in the French-speaking part of Switzerland for a number of years. And also, what I learned from that is his tremendous connections with European royalty, going back through his family, because he comes across as being very British, and he is in many respects. But he has family connections with the Greek royal family, going back also to the Romanovs, to the Russians too. So it's really quite sort of astonishing how well connected he is in Europe and as well.
Not to be outdone, I've also got a copy of the Hugo Vickers book, and I can share your recommendation, Marcus. It's a very informally structured book, carried out during the COVID lockdown as a series of interviews with the Duke and his family and people who've worked close to him. But I think it just amplifies the message that the participants on this call have stressed this evening of how committed the Duke is to service in a number of areas. And very touchingly, at the end of the book, there's a discussion between Hugo Vickers and the late Duchess, where Hugo Vickers says that the Duke always has seen his role when the late Queen was alive as trying to take some weight off the shoulders of the Queen. So he was not someone who was ever trying to seek attention for himself, but there to support the monarch of the day by fulfilling a service role in support. We still have time for another question from the audience if anyone would like to ask, and we have a couple in the Q&A, which is from Angela Dix, asking if this webinar is going to be sent to His Royal Highness. And the answer is that His Royal Highness's office is very much aware that this webinar is taking place. We set it up with their approval and encouragement. So if they are not watching online tonight, they will certainly have an opportunity to watch it separately afterwards. And indeed, if any of your friends would like to watch it and weren't able to dial in this evening, it will shortly be available on our YouTube channel, where I think it will be the 50th video available on the BGA YouTube channel. And I had a little bit of spare time over the weekend and was binge watching a number of previous BGA videos that I hadn't had a chance to attend live. And I can really recommend them as giving a really broad introduction to various aspects of German history and culture. And there's no charge to access the channel, so it's open to anyone who would like to learn more about our activities or about Germany.
Can I just add another little tidbit. As the Duke was at school in French-speaking part of Switzerland, that also is one reason why he became a demon skier, because this school partly taught in the lowland, but during the winter they moved up to Gstaad, and there every afternoon they're out on their skis. And I do remember that when later he was going on skiing well into his 70s, and we used to have sometimes some problems finding out whether he's going to be available in February to go to Dresden for the anniversary, because it had to not clash with his skiing holidays in Klosters. So we had some nice friendly discussions about that. And but I think fantastic, skiing still into his 70s, and he learned it at school.
And he was saying in his in the book with Hugo Vickers that at the time he learned skiing, they didn't have the modern quick release catches, and the skis were very long. So there was a greater danger of injury, and you had to be more skilled than a modern skier would be in order to manage that. But his interest in skiing has not just been something personal for him, but he's also been a patron of the Ski Club of Great Britain, the Kandahar Ski Club, and the Army Winter Sports Association. So it's another example of how his personal interests have been reflected in the wide range of organizations that he's been patron of and that have been lucky enough to enjoy his support. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to offer Chris or Matthew a chance to make any closing remarks that you'd like to on any topic we haven't perhaps covered so far. Chris?
Yes. So, yeah, I was just going to add, actually, we have Scout groups in Germany as well as part of our British Scouting Overseas sort of element, and they're as warm with their thanks as we are over the Scout groups and Scouts here in the UK. And in fact, on His Royal Highness's birthday on Friday, we shared a video on our Facebook channel, and we were deluged by warm and well wishes. And I'll put the link in the chat so you can sort of see that for yourself, perhaps after the call. But we had wonderful notes. Somebody said, I had the privilege of acting as his Scout security when he attended the Jamboree. He sat and had lunch with a group of Scouts and was very relaxed and very entertaining. A pleasure to have spent time with him. And somebody else said he presented my son with his Queen Scout Award back in 1992. And it was a very proud day for him and everyone who attended. So we've got lots and lots of lovely comments on that. And you know, I'd encourage you to go and have a look in the chat. But as I said, it's you know, his wonderful warmth and generosity kind of spreads far and wide. And I'm not his only fan in Scouts.
That's fantastic to learn about. And perhaps offline we could have a discussion about whether there's more we can do to link what the BGA is doing with your scouting groups in Germany, because we're always looking for different points of connection between the UK and Germany.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matthew, any closing thoughts from you?
Not really, but just, you know, thank you for allowing me and Blood Cancer UK to be part of this. I think it is really wonderful. It was really wonderful to hear the experiences of everybody else of the Duke of Kent, because it just resonates so strongly with the experiences we have, and as I said, like the people affected by blood cancer, and the sort of the genuine interest and curiosity and engagement, which is not easy to do when you're a patron of so many causes and so many different issues, and to give each one the same level of dedication is remarkable. So thank you for hosting this, and it was great to hear from you all.
Thank you very much. And I think that's a very good note to end on, because as you say, Matthew, His Royal Highness just has that wonderful gift of making each of his 160 organizations feel that they are the special one, and that he doesn't give the impression of just doing it out of a sense of reluctant duty, but of someone who is really personally engaged and committed. And I think it is really remarkable that at an age when most of us would be long retired, he is still willing to be engaged with so many different organizations. So let me just end by saying, as all of you have done so far, happy birthday, sir, and thank you again for all that you have done for us. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening. And we look forward to seeing you at future BGA events, perhaps at our bilingual Christmas carol service on the 4th of December. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.